John Hook's Newsmaker Saturday starts now.
And thanks for joining us. As the chief of police in the fifth largest city in America, she oversees nearly 3,000 sworn officers and 900 civilian employees. Much of the work goes on quietly, without much fanfare. Only this week, a remarkable bit of police work as Phoenix PD identified and arrested a nurse, a male nurse, accused of impregnating an incapacitated woman in long-term care. Let's get started. Phoenix Police Chief Jeri Williams is my guest on Fox 10 Newsmaker Saturday. Great to see you. What a remarkable development. Did you know you were going to move this quickly on this case?
So I was fully confident in the capabilities of our employees, and not just the detectives, but our crime lab, our street crimes, our fugitive apprehension detail. So I was hopeful, and I was very confident in their abilities to find our suspect, but it was really like a needle in the haystack.
36-year-old male nurse. He'd worked there, I think, since 2011.
Yes.
What do we know about him? What do we know about potentially other victims out there?
So we don't know about other victims. So as I mentioned earlier, this investigation is still ongoing. So we were fortunate to be able to identify and have probable cause to arrest Nathan Sutherland, but the investigation is still going on for the reasons that you mentioned. What if there are other victims? What I know is what we talked about earlier today. Been working there since 2011 as a licensed practical nurse, and we were able to develop probable cause to arrest him today.
Okay, take me back a little bit. You get this kind of wide net court order to take DNA of every male employee.
Yes.
And we talked about why it's not called rape, it's sexual assault, because that's the actual formal category that you use.
Exactly.
Did you at all, were you concerned that not just the male people working there, but it could be cleaning crew? Pardon this, but you have to consider family members, extended family. There could be myriad possibilities of who could have had access.
Or perhaps someone who could have come into the facility unknowingly and committed the act. So we cast our net very wide. I think that's a testament to our law enforcement agency. We knew we had to act swiftly. We knew we had to act quickly. We assigned resources, staff, and people on site to be able to process and run through DNA. Kudos to the DNA technology of our crime lab. And quite frankly, so you have the technology, but you also have to have people talking.
Right.
You have to have detectives talking to individuals, listening to what's going on, and being able to scour through evidence and information in order to make this arrest.
You've been at this now, let's see, you did 22 years at Phoenix PD before you left and went to Oxnard. I think you're 28 years
in law
into
enforcement.
Okay, so you've seen DNA evolve and what it's become.
Yes.
In this kind of case, this is pretty much as ironclad as it gets, right? You've got the baby's DNA, you know who the father is. I mean, this is up to the prosecutors now, but your work...
So our work today is so much faster than it used to be. Although I think some of our community members think, much like CSI on TV, that we get your DNA today and tomorrow we can find you.
Oh, it's solved in one episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're actually getting to the point to where DNA can really point us in that direction so much faster. We're even looking at rapid DNA technology. Again, I can't speak any more highly of our crime lab administrator, who's really going out to really find that new technology that's going to help us with backlogs, that's going to help us with other things.
Right. Okay, take me inside the command structure for a minute.
Okay.
When we're being told by Tommy Thompson and others that this is A1 top priority, and you said it as well.
Yes.
Who makes that call? Is that your call that this is priority one?
That is a great question. As a police chief, I trust and I have confidence in my employees. So when it comes to making something a priority, when it comes to moving staff from one place to another, the commanders, the sergeants, the lieutenants, they make that decision. That decision comes up the chain, and we as an executive team collectively say, absolutely, you're absolutely and totally right. We're going to make this our #1 priority. But keep in mind about this, John, this is a woman who could not defend herself, who then becomes pregnant and has a baby. So we have a new member of our community who didn't ask to be here. He is here. He's someone that we have to show compassion for, and he's someone that we owe it to resolve this crime.
And the family is extended family is taking care of this child.
That's what I read. So I haven't had contact with them.
When this all began, were you concerned with a DNA when you made it very public you were going to test all the male employees of Hacienda Healthcare? How concerned were you that this person could flee, quit, vanish,
All the above. So we were extremely concerned, so much so, I think the public information officer, I think it was Sergeant Tommy Thompson, took a little bit of hits a couple of times for saying, hey, why didn't you all just come right out and say, look, this is what we have to protect the investigation integrity.
What do you mean this is what we have?
So we have a sexual assault. This is what we're looking for. This is who we're looking for. So we didn't come all out with that information. We had to protect the investigation. And I say this all the time. We just can't make the arrest. We have to make the rest of the case. And so to protect our victim, to protect the baby, to protect the fact that we were going to get court-ordered DNA samples, we had to withhold some information for a short period of time.
This is the tug-of-war that goes on with the media and police.
It is.
You have to protect your investigation. Absolutely. We're trying to get information out. You're trying not to compromise an investigation.
But what I like about the media is specifically you all are really getting information out. So when we're asking you to solicit information from the community, to push out information, you all have been amazing partners in getting information out when we can get it out. So from my department to you, thank you.
I appreciate that. Did you get tips in this case? Did this guy's name ever come up to your knowledge?
So as far as silent witness goes, I'm not certain about that. I do know that in discussions and in talking, our detectives could have perhaps heard of an instance, maybe not a person.
So the obvious question is, if this guy knows there's going to be DNA testing, he continued to work there? Didn't he know eventually this?
So I don't know what was his mental state. I will say this, just the fact that this crime was committed on someone who is not able to defend herself is very horrific. So when I first got the news about it, I was horrified that this could happen to an individual in our community.
Could superiors be held accountable as well? Could anybody else be criminally charged in this?
So that's a question for the investigation to lead us, and I think that that's a question for Hacienda.
My understanding is he's out on bond?
That I haven't heard. So as we
ankle monitor?
As we were having our press conference, he was being booked at the time.
Because he has no prior criminal record. That's what I understood. We're going to take a break here on Newsmaker Saturday. Back in a minute with Police Chief Jeri Williams.
Thanks.
Back with Phoenix Police Chief Jeri Williams, our guest on Newsmaker Saturday. Great to see you. And, you know, again, a remarkable week with the arrest of this man in the Hacienda Healthcare case. Fifth largest city in the country. You guys have been dealing with this police shooting issue that you're trying to get a handle on. There's a study currently underway to try to figure it out. You had, what, 41 in 2018, roughly?
We had 44 in 2018.
44, so I missed a couple.
Right.
In 2017, you had 21.
Yes, for the entire year. So
what gives? Are we to extrapolate anything from 1 year? Can you say anything about 1 year snapshot?
So what the study is looking at is not just 1 year, because 1 year could truly be an anomaly. They're actually looking at 9 to 10 years worth of data and information, not just for us, but in like cities across the country as well, just to see what is going on with our aggravated assaults on officers, what's going on with people and weapons. But I will say this, I know we were very bold in our approach. So when we hit May of 2018, we realized we had the same number of officer-involved shootings in May that we did for the previous year. We commissioned and asked City Council, and they agreed to commission a study from the National Police Foundation.
That's $150,000 to study to finance, or should get it early this year sometime.
So we should get it sometime in February, we're hopeful.
Okay, you've got 1,200 patrol officers and sergeants. You've only got 300 cameras.
Yes.
Do you need those body cameras? Is this a vital thing?
Absolutely. It is a tool that creates trust. It's a tool that, quite frankly, our officers want. It's a tool that our community wants. So absolutely.
You were a big advocate of this when you were police chief in Oxnard, California.
Oh, absolutely. We rolled out body-worn cameras out in Oxnard.
Was the problem that there they had money and here you don't?
No, I think in Oxnard, and much like Phoenix, so I don't think it's a problem for money, because City Council was smart enough to set aside some funds for us. In Oxnard, it was just timing. I think in Phoenix, it's just timing and finding the right equipment to put on our officers too. And I'm confident that we have that now.
Have the officers started to feel better about having these cameras on? Because I'll be honest with you. Now, I'm not in the public safety business, but I'm not sure I would want to wear a camera around all the time. Now, granted, you're only engaging it when you get on a call.
Agreed. But if you keep in mind the fact that when my folks are out on calls, someone's already cell phone taping them anyway. So why not have a piece of equipment that's going to be sent to a cloud that we can use later?
Do you believe it tells the whole story?
Absolutely not. So what a body-worn camera shows you is a piece of information. There's something that happens before, there's something that happens during, there's something that happens after, and we've been telling our community members that too. So the camera is one more tool that our officers have on this tool belt of what they have, but it does increase transparency, it does increase trust.
Do you think it causes hesitancy in officers to act?
That's a good question. We've not found that over time and in studies. I've talked to some of my peers across the country. They've not found that. So what we're doing is we do have Dr. Michael Scott from Arizona State University, who's in our police building now. So thank you very much, Dr. Crow, for that, who is going to research and continue to research the impacts and effects of body-worn cameras. So not only are we trying to roll out a tool pending council approval, we also have the academic side to make sure that research and academia is giving us what we need.
How troubled are you that the community is concerned that police are becoming more and more violent?
How troubled am I that certain segments of the community are troubled about that? So any person in our community who has an issue with trust with our police department, I absolutely have to be concerned with. At the same time, we're hearing from a small majority of people versus the great masses of individuals who routinely and constantly, and my staff can tell you this, when we go to a restaurant, folks will leave their table and physically come over and thank us for our service. So we have to work on that. We have to work on the trust. We have to constantly communicate. And regardless of what folks may say, I know that we do that we do try to reach out, that we do communicate.
This past year, 2018, which you told me before the taping, it's been a challenging year.
It was a tough year. It was tough.
You've taken a lot of heat. So if you've got a city like Phoenix that has more police shootings than New York or LA or Chicago or Houston.
Exactly.
That's got to really...
That bothers me. It bothers me, and it bothers me to the point to where I'm not willing just to sit back and let it happen and just hope it doesn't happen again. We were forthright. We commissioned a study. Actually, all those cities that you mentioned, I'm really good friends with all those chiefs. So we routinely and regularly have constant communication as a member of Major City Chiefs organization. So I've been talking to the people who are the experts, and folks really can't explain this. That's why it's so critical to get this information from the study.
And this isn't only happening in Phoenix. Let me roll this video. It just happened in Tempe, a 14-year-old boy who broke into a truck, and you could see the video here. When you see this as an officer, as a chief now, you were out on the street for many years.
Right.
What comes to mind when you see this video?
So what comes to mind is the fact that Chief Sylvia Moyer is in a tough position, that this is a tough scenario, it's a tough situation. I think what Chief Moyer said was very true. Give us time to work through the process of the investigation.
But for the 14-year-old boy lost.
So our condolences go out to anyone who's been involved and impacted in a police shooting. So we say that with this instance, we say it with our instance, but there's also an officer who's impacted too. This is a tough challenge, a tough scenario, a tough situation. But I will say this, I've known Sylvia now for almost 6 years, 7 years. She is fully committed to transparency, and she's fully committed to seeing this through.
As an African-American woman, I'm sure you and Cody had discussions with your kids about how to act around police. And by the way, this isn't just African-American kids. More white victims actually in Phoenix than African-American victims.
So people always ask that question, especially when they're talking to two parents who, in my opinion, have successfully raised two African-American males. Anytime we had any kid come to our house, because our house was a place where everyone dropped their children off for basketball, regardless of your ethnicity. They were all boys at the time. We had the sit-down talk with them of how to be respectful, how to interact with, how to talk to law enforcement. It wasn't just our kids that we talked to. I think it's our responsibility to talk to all the kids.
Let me ask you, just walk us through that for anybody out there who's a parent. What would you want them to tell their kids about how to respond in a police situation?
Great question. So be respectful. Whatever the officer's asking you to do, just go ahead and do it. Officers typically have some type of protocol where if something is awry, that you get that officer's name and you get that officer's number.
And if you ask for that, that should not be an affront to the officer.
That should not be. because we're accountable. We're transparent. We're supposed to
That's
provide
not going
great
to get you
service
off
to the
on the
community.
wrong foot to say that?
Well, I told our kids to do that. We told their friends to do that. And then at the end of the day, most of us have professional standards bureaus or places that investigate what officers do and don't do. And we would take that up that way. Arguing on the street isn't going to pan anything out. But what I want to loop back to, though, is again the fact that the officers that we have on the street now are so used to and so accustomed to someone out there taking video of them. This isn't new anymore. They're used to that cell phone being out and about, and they must judge themselves and operate accordingly.
Do you believe the public you are serving has become more violent and less respectful of authority?
So I can't say that that's a yes, because every day I get the opportunity to engage with people who thank us for our service, who say that we're doing a great and amazing job. I will say in the instances that we had last year in 2018, I'm hopeful that it's an anomaly.
The Republic did some analysis of all of these.
Yes.
They said that prison history, mental illness, and recent drug use were commonalities in all these shootings. Almost all of them. Do you buy that?
So I don't know if I buy it or not buy it. I do know that those were factors that we looked at. Those are factors that the National Police Foundation are looking at too. So obviously when you're engaging with someone, and we're finding this more and more, so much so that we're adding in crisis intervention and community response into our communications system. So what you'll do is when you call in and there's a call and something is going on, we're going to have crisis response team information available so that our dispatchers can properly direct you to the right resources.
I've got to throw a name out there, and I want to show video of Jarrett Maupin.
Okay.
Is Jarrett Maupin, in your view, helpful in the dialogue going on in the community?
Jarrett Maupin is a community member who's exercising his First Amendment rights.
Does he make your job more difficult?
Jarrett Maupin is another community member, one of the voices in the community. I will say this, my job
I've had
is,
him on the program.
Hey, my job is difficult no matter who's talking.
You had to have dealt with him.
So no matter who's talking, my job is difficult.
You've talked to him, right? I mean, he's been around as long as you've been around in Phoenix.
He's been around for a very long time. I can remember standing on stage at a mental health fair where he was complimenting me and complimenting the police department. And that happened not too long ago. So he is one member of the community that we listen to. He's one member of the community that we interact and engage with. My job is a tough job, regardless of who's talking.
Harold Hurt was the first African-American who was the chief of police in Phoenix. Now you're the second. How important is that in the community, meaning the black community, to have an African-American in your position?
So that's an interesting question, and let me answer it a couple of different ways.
It kind of puts you in a bind, doesn't it?
Oh, no. No, because at the end of the day, regardless of my ethnicity or gender, guess what? I'm still the Phoenix Police Chief. So I am the Phoenix Police Chief who just happens to be black and female. So what that does is I have great connections with my community. I have great connections with
Does it help in that
communities.
regard, I guess is what I'm getting at? Does it create a bridge that maybe would not be there with a white face in that position?
So I think it creates an opportunity for me to use my contacts, my connections, people who raised me for the love of Pete. I can pick up the phone and call. So what I think it does sometimes is it gives me a little bit more grace and a little bit more time to come to the community and have conversations with them.
What's your biggest challenge right now in the department?
Hiring.
It's recruiting and hiring.
It is actually hiring and retaining employees.
The problem being, it's hard to get people who want to do this job?
So I think the problem being is us creating a way to sell our brand and to sell law enforcement as a way to go. I think one of the good examples you could look at could be me, to be honest. Born and raised in Phoenix, went to Maryville High School, went to Arizona State University, started off thinking I was going to be a flight attendant, and next thing you know, I'm the police chief in the fifth largest city.
I remember that. You were a fine arts major,
Yes, I was a fine arts
right?
major, so I'm a theater major. Go ASU.
I'm with you there.
But seriously, so we've taken steps to really hone in on that recruitment piece, so much so that we move recruitment directly under the Office of Administration or under my office. We have a brand new sergeant who's there in that position who is gangbusters. She has great ideas. She's thinking of ways to get us involved and engaged. So last but not least, since I'm here talking to you on TV, we're looking for folks who want to work for the police department. Find the blue in you is what our slogan is. We're looking for communications dispatchers, police officers, police aides, you name it. The opportunities are endless.
Nice pitch.
Thank you.
Jeri Williams, Phoenix Police Chief, our guest on Newsmaker Saturday. Some final thoughts in a minute. And by the way, do you know that the crime rate across the country has gone dramatically down in the last several decades? Yet you wouldn't know it watching the evening news. That's on us. Back in a minute with Chief Williams. Back on Newsmaker Saturday, Chief Jeri Williams is my guest. Pleased to have you back. I think this is your second time. You took the job in October of 2016.
Yes.
What's the big takeaway? What have you learned in this job?
My goodness, a lot. I have learned that as a police chief or as a police department, you have a responsibility to learn, grow, and improve. And that's exactly what we've been doing with our training detail. So we have a basic training site that brings up the new recruits. And then we have an advanced side that is the constant training, continual training that's going on with our police department.
Do you follow football?
I do.
Are you more Bill Belichick or are you more Bruce Arians? They're both tough, actually. What I'm getting at is, are you lead by example? I'm not going to give you a lot of pats on the back. We're going to grind and we're going to win. Or is there a lot of love coming out of your office?
Well, that's a really good question. So let me answer it this way. I love my employees. I love my police department. I tell them that often.
When you run into an officer, you...
So everyone know that there's a certain nurturing and compassion that I have. At the same time, though, there's always accountability and responsibility. So a great example of kind of the yin and the yang that I have is I challenge our folks to go out and come up with new crime-fighting ideas. So we talked a little bit earlier about crime going down. So our homicide is down. We're hopeful that our crime rate is going to start going down as opposed to going up. But
violent crime ticked up a little bit last year.
Well, it did, but then we had some things that were working very well. So our crime suppression strategies, where we would take people and put them in different areas of the city, we were doing an amazing job.
Okay, so it's a mix.
Yes.
In your approach. The homeless issue in Phoenix has become really an issue. Right. And I think the property crimes would probably reflect that, some of the assault numbers that have gone up. How big of a driver of crime is that population?
So I won't quantify and say it's that population. I will say that homelessness and the quality of life issues have been a big drain on information coming in to us from our community members that are wanting us to do something about it. But again, we're learning, we're growing, we're changing, we're improving, we're making adjustments to training. You talk about de-escalation and shoot, don't shoot situations.
And you're dealing with mental health, so this is very important. Our academy
is all over it. And in each of the scenarios and situations that we have now, they're putting some mental health components in there in order for us, our officers, to make decisions.
I'm seeing panhandlers on every street corner.
Agree?
Can anything be done about this?
So as a city, we're working collectively because you know that homelessness is not a crime, okay? So from a criminal element, that's not necessarily our wheelhouse, but from a quality of life perspective and a holistic, issue. Well, it is, but that's why the city of Phoenix has Phoenix Cares. That's why we're partnering with some of the folks that we have that we're able to guide and direct. That's why we work so closely with Cass and with the Andre House.
We've got a minute left. Is light rail also a magnet for crime?
So what we found is that we did have to put more officers into the light rail platform system because folks were going and ebbing and flowing on the light rail system. Look, at the end of the day, crime isn't about one thing. Crime isn't about one person. Crime isn't about one thing. Crime is what happens if we let it happen.
Is this a more violent city than it was when you started?
You know, I can't say that because if you think back to when I started, we had Rodney King incidents. We had officers that were going down in the projects that were getting rocked and bottled and things thrown at them.
True.
So I've come full scale and full spectrum where I'm able to see and make adjustments on the fly in order to keep you safe, in order to keep my officers safe.
Any final thing you'd like to pass along to the community? It's been a remarkable week, this arrest.
So our officers are committed to providing the best service possible. At the end of the day, I employ human beings. I don't employ robots. I love the fact that we're diverse. I love the fact that we're different. I love the fact that we communicate. Can we always get better? Absolutely, and we're committed to that.
Chief Williams, I'm going to juggle my water bottles. Great
Thank
to
you
see
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
it. Chief Jeri Williams on Newsmaker Saturday. We will see you next week. Enjoy what's left of your weekend. We'll see you then.